when we're talking about the different reasons resistance can come up for us, it can be because you're doing something that is new and different and your brain it doesn't like it, right? Because our brains are designed to protect us and to keep us from doing things that are new and different. It can also bring up triggers for you. I get this question all the time. So clients will come to me and they'll be like, I'm supposed to post business type content on my personal profile. Well, what are people going to think, right? They're going to think I'm spammy. They're going to think I'm salesy. And I think that the triggers, right? The triggers come up because you've seen other people be spammy and salesy. One of the things that I think a lot of us are, me too, me too, we're scarred over it and we don't want to engage people in the DMs potentially is because we've been hit up so many different times, right? And we don't ever want to be that person. I never want to be that person. You guys don't ever want to be that person. So sometimes it's the triggers of the things that we've experienced in the past that bring up all of that stuff for us. Other things that can make us resist is just like we've maybe never put ourselves out there before, and being vulnerable or being transparent is something that can bring up nerves and mindset stuff because we're humans, right? And we don't like to put ourselves in positions where we could be judged or where we could be rejected. That is a biological feature that has been built into us because when we were judged, when we were rejected, when we were outcast, right? Thousands of years ago, tribally, you would die. Like humans could not survive on their own. So we have all of this like biological stuff at work for us in our brains that is trying to keep us from pretty much doing all the things that are required to build a business. But the good news is that your mind can override it. So I read a book a couple years ago and it was called You Are Not Your Brain. And it's by a guy named Jeffrey Schwartz, if you want to look it up. And I want to tell you why that book was so powerful for me. It wasn't that I had like learned anything that I hadn't thought about before, but they do a couple of really like things really, really well. So the first thing is it actually helped me identify the sources of my own anxiety, my people pleasing. It went through a lot of different examples of like people that he had worked with or observed or whatever, and talking about the different like things that happened to them. And I thought, just because I never had any like what you would consider to be like major trauma in childhood, I didn't understand like why I was having anxiety issues and things like that, because you're always fed, everything comes from your childhood. But he was giving like a lot of different examples. And what I discovered in these examples that he was giving was that some of them were like very like seemingly significant. And it actually helped me identify the source of my people pleasing anxiety. I had a very abusive kindergarten teacher. It's like such a weird thing, right? To be abused by your kindergarten teacher, but it was more like verbal and emotional. But I was also like, look, I've been to Sierra Leone. I work with blood diamond victims. I have a master's in Holocaust and genocide studies. That's a pretty minimal trauma, right? But what it taught me was not to discount anything. So it actually helped me really understand the source of my own anxiety. And this is where the conversation around deceptive thoughts comes in, right? Because we all have these patterns and programs in our minds and these triggers. And so what they distinguish between is your brain, this like biological entity that is designed to keep you alive, keep you safe. Basically, it doesn't want you to do anything that entrepreneurship requires. And then they also talk about the mind, right? And the mind is where you have control. It's where you can use your logic. It's where you can actually observe the thoughts that your brain is feeding you and say, hey, you know what? Is this actually true? Right? So when your triggers come up, so for me, it's anxiety, right? For you, it might be fear. For others, it might be scarcity. For others, it might be just like a lot of doubt. It could be overwhelm, right? That's a big one for especially like newer coaches, newer entrepreneurs. And when these things start to come up, you're actually going to be able to, if you take the time to do it, recognize the thoughts and create actually a new story from them. Is this real? Does this thing need to be causing me anxiety? And so I always recommend that book, or at least, kind of giving this conversation some thought, because you're all going to have deceptive thoughts. Okay. You're going to make a post that you thought was the best post on the entire planet, and everyone's going to love it. And you're going to get like 2 likes, and your brain is going to be like, oh my gosh, no one sees my stuff. Or, oh my gosh, this isn't good enough. Or, oh my gosh, how can I ever succeed when this person's doing blah, 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 right? Like it's going to feed you one of an infinite variety of deceptive thoughts, and none of them are actually true, and none of them are actually helpful. So if you can start to get in the practice of recognizing your own thoughts and assessing them for like what they're worth and starting to rewrite them, you're going to be a heck of a lot happier, and you're going to be able to move forward so much faster.